So, this way. Yeah. So for thousands of years, people remained helpless about these new diseases. They did not know what the origin of this disease was, and so they thought it was the wrath of gods, and they could really do nothing about it, prevent or cure these diseases. Then in this period, 1870, 1970, then things changed a lot. Because especially around 1870, there was the work both of the group of Robert Koch in Germany, of Pasteur in France, which showed that infectious diseases were due to microbes, to microorganisms. So once the enemy was known, one could start to develop strategies to fight against them. And so there was the development of hygiene, there were vaccines, there were antibiotics, all of the strategies which really allowed to, it seemed to, so at least at the time, to stop these infectious diseases. So as a consequence, most of the deadly infectious diseases came to be controlled in the most developed countries. Hence, it seemed only normal when the Surgeon General of the United States in 1967 declared victory against the threat of infectious diseases and suggested that his nation turns its attention to resources to the more important threat of chronic diseases such as cancer or cardiovascular diseases. It seemed at that time it was the end of infectious diseases. However, at the beginning of the 1970s, some doctors and scientists started to feel uneasy. First, in hospitals, pathogenic bacteria resistant to antibiotics were encountered more frequently. And then people started to realize that infectious diseases that had almost disappeared from the Western world, such as tuberculosis and malaria, were still taking a very heavy toll in the developing world. And finally, it started to be realized that a return of a deadly epidemic of flu, like the one which caused between 20 and 50 million of deaths in 1988, could happen any day. We did not know how it occurred, and so it could occur again. But then came the year 1976. And retrospectively, it was a turning point. At that time, mankind was just about to winning its most dazzling victory against an infectious disease, the eradication of smallpox from the surface of the earth. So this is a picture showing someone with smallpox, and you have to realize that during the 19th century, about 1/10 of all deaths were due to smallpox. So it was not a minor disease. But a vaccine had been invented by Jenner at the end of the 18th century. It was progressively developed, and in WHO entertained a major generalized vaccination campaign, so that in 1977 was the last case of smallpox on Earth. And since the smallpox virus can only live in human beings, it meant that there was no more smallpox in the earth. There are still some viruses kept in some fridge in the United States and in Russia, but there is no case of smallpox, and normally there should never be another case of smallpox on the earth, unless there is an accident or something of the kind. So it seemed that really the Surgeon General of the United States was right. We had been able to totally eradicate one disease. Why not eradicate all diseases? But what happened in 1976 are three events which I'm going to recall now.